the physical feelings. Physical in the sense that listening, it's not just decoding and sort of giving meaning to language, words, but okay, what if I want to listen because I've heard something interesting, because probably I saw something, maybe I heard a piece of music. So it's not just the words that need to sort of trigger the desire to learn, but probably some other forms. And here we need to remember that not all students learn in the same way. We have visual students, we have kinesthetic students, we have auditory-oriented students. So we need to sort of cater for those students. It doesn't mean that we're going to cater for all 45, but it means that we need to give them the chances for them to say, aha, I like that, I like what I saw, so I'm going to pay attention to that, rather than just being exposed to the same type of inputs. So far, the 3 points for the presentation, and now it's time to move on to the hands-on activity. Okay, so this is what we could do in the classroom. Well, I cannot do it with you as if you were my students, but use your imagination and try to follow me as I give you instructions, okay? Now, pre-listening, we all do pre-listening because in every course book we use, it says there pre-listening, and there are a number of activities, okay, that you're probably very familiar with. So here I have just chosen a couple. The teacher may say, for example, okay, kids, guys, students, today we're going to hear about Mr. So-and-so. And then we ask, okay, what do you know about Mr. So-and-so? And students may give us some information. Sometimes they say very little. And we may also ask, do you like his songs? Or do you like the movie? Etc., etc. And we elicit information, and while students give us information, we write notes on the board. Okay, or we may echo the student's answers, say, aha, right, so you like him because, you know, blah, blah, blah. Ah, okay, so he's from the United States. So we echo the answers, but it's basically using the same inputs. It's language, and we get language in response. And then we do that for about 1 or 2 minutes, and then we go on to the why listening activity. And here we have the famous handout. And I'm going to show you perhaps something which visually is very familiar to what you may prepare and to what we find in course books. So usually 2 tasks. The first one to deal with gist or general understanding. And the instruction might be listen and circle the correct alternative. The text is a biography, a radio interview, or a song review. So students listen and they mark the correct alternative. And then you say to them, listen again and answer the following questions. And as you can see, we've got 10. Probably just by looking at them, students will say, way too many. So from that moment, they may say, I'm not going to listen. I can hardly understand the teacher. How will I be able to answer 10 questions? So motivation is absolutely shattered. And we play once, twice, 3 times, sometimes 4 times, until most students get most of the answers, right? And let's see if I can get out of this here. Should be able to do that. Ooh. This always happens when you use technology. So here. So students answer the questions. We play the audio material as many times as they need to, and then probably we check the answers. Okay, so what's the answer to number 1? What's the answer to number 2? All the 10 answers. And we may go to the post-listening. So we focus on language. we've done the listening, and now it's time to focus on grammar or lexis. And the teacher may perhaps write an exercise on the board, give a handout, or use the suggested activity from the course book. And basically, we could use something like this. So after listening, we ask the students to complete the sentences with was or were, because that's the language focus. We're talking about past tense, okay? So you're supposed to say or write, Sting was born in England and his father was a milkman, or Sting and his band were very famous in the 1980s, etc. So basically the focus is on language, on accuracy. And pretty much that's the end of the lesson. And then you do something else. They, go home, and that's the end of the lesson. And when you come back, you may ask, so what do you remember about our last lesson? They may say a few things. You say thank you, and then you move on. And then we are dealing with listening in the sense that it's an isolated skill. We are not really integrating it with something else. And this is what I suggest you do, okay? No, it's not necessarily the answer to all questions, but it may give you some ideas. Okay, pre-listening. Again, we cannot skip this, which is like pre, while, and post have always been there, and they will be for some time. Okay, pre-listening. Why do we do it? Because we need to activate or sometimes even build background knowledge in terms of facts, in terms of what students may know about Sting, and also about the genre, about how the information that they are going to listen is organized. And here we have the new element. How can I introduce the affective dimension? How can I make my students feel that they want to listen rather than listen and answer the questions? Okay? No. I might show you them, the students, a photograph. Girls would probably love it. And you may ask, about, hey, maybe they don't know the word Sting as a name, but probably they can recall by looking at the picture. So in that way, you are triggering more information than just by simply asking, what do you know about Sting? So there you have the a picture. You may also perhaps show a bee, because the word Sting is related to bee, and then we're going to find out why. That's one possibility, using visuals. Because remember that some of students are visual, they need to have sort of the visual inputs. And the other possibility is while they look at the picture, they may listen to a song. An Englishman in New York, probably some of you will remember it. It will trigger some memories, okay? But again, it's like, I like the music, I like the way it sounds. So maybe I want to know more about the person rather than to answer questions. You see what I mean? It's more like I have a reason to listen rather than I have to listen because I have to answer questions, okay? You can play not necessarily the entire song, but it will pretty much depend on the reaction of the students. In general, they like it. So, visual input, audio input, which is not the listening itself, but music, which is always a good element in the classroom. And we go to the while listening activity. The same 10 questions, but here, sorry, missed it. Students listen to the audio material, and this is the key point here, and answer the questions that they have chosen. don't ask students to answer 10 questions because it's overloading them.